Lorenzo de Medici, born January 1st, 1449 in Florence, Italy, was a rich trader and eventually unofficial ruler of Florence. To show his wealth, he became a patron of the arts. Once Lorenzo's father died and received the de Medici power and wealth, Lorenzo made it known that he would follow his ancestors' path of rule. His rule would be described as a soft tyrant who loved festivals, balls, and celebrations. In 1478, the Pazzi Bank took charge of the Catholic Church's business and money, taking this responsibility from the de Medici family. Pope Sixtus IV, his nephew, and the Archbishop of Pisa supported the Pazzi and ended up making alliance with them. They schemed to assassinate Lorenzo and his little brother Giuliano during Easter Mass. They succeeded in killing Giuliano, but Lorenzo survived by hiding in the sacristy. After the attack, the Archbishop challenged Medici's civil magistrate and head of the People's Militia, who, being a harsh man, had the Archbishop hung from the Palazzino in front of everyone. Pope Sixtus IV, supported by King Ferdinand I of Naples, was angered and demanded the hanging of the Medici family's civil magistrate, as if he had forgotten the murder that had taken place in the cathedral, where 2 of his priests had been involved. He threatened to put an interdiction on Florence unless Medici was handed over with him. With this threat and Naples' king siding with the Pope, Florence was getting little support from Milan and nowhere else. Lorenzo traveled alone to Naples, where he spoke to King Ferdinand, one of the cruelest rulers of the century. Lorenzo's fearlessness won peace for Florence with Naples, and without the support of King Ferdinand I, the Pope had no choice but to accept this peace. Lorenzo returned to Florence with growing popularity. He created a Council of 70 which amazed Europe. He seemed to others as the clear ruler of Florence. Even his villas had the majesty of a king. Lorenzo married an Orsin, a family with high Roman nobility. He and his wife had a daughter who later married Pope Innocent VIII's son, born before his father entered the religious orders, and 2 sons. The family's patronage of artists, architects, and writers also showed their wealth and supported many famous artists and thinkers. Lorenzo himself contributed more than anyone to the growing of Florentine genius during the second half of the 15th century. He continued collecting ancient texts, and in his villa he created what is called the Platonic Academy, but was more like a circle of good friends. His teacher Marsilio Finicio, the humanist Pico de Mendolia, and his very close friend Angelo Palazzino, the poet who had saved his life on the day of the Pazzi conspiracy. Lorenzo's reputation did not rely on wealth alone. He was also thought of as a poet with great talent. His preference with the Tuscan language over Latin was unheard of at this time. Also, his custom of treating artists with open arms and of financially supporting their projects and discoveries. The artists under his patronage included Giuliano da San Gallo, Bolochetti, Verrocchio, and Verrocchio's student Leonardo da Vinci. And towards the end of his life, Lorenzo opened a school of sculpture in his garden of San Marco. There, a 15-year-old student snatched his attention and was brought up in the villa like a son to the family. His name was Michelangelo. Lorenzo de Medici also supported mathematicians. The son of a court musician, Galileo grew up on the fringes of the Medici court and was fascinated by the art of spectacle and display. Talented mathematician, his early scientific training required him to also study technical drawing at the Florentine Academy of Art and Design. Galileo soon began lecturing in natural science in local universities. He made a name for himself when he discovered the uniformity of the pendulum vibrations. It was a critical step in the accurate measurement of time and fueled the envy of his peers. Galileo had become both a prodigy and a troublemaker. Universities tended to be more conservative, and Galileo actively searched for a more liberal home. In the summer of 1611, he seized his chance and impressed Grand Duke Ferdinand I with his scientific instruments. Galileo was appointed royal professor of mathematicians and philosophy with a health salary. He had found his niche. As Galileo's reputation spread through Italy and Europe, his Medici patrons bestowed celebrity and protection. In return, Galileo ensured his discoveries were unveiled in the court of the de Medicis as a form of court entertainment. Renaissance humanism was applied to all aspects of life, from art and literature to even architecture to politics. After Petrarch, humanism philosophy spread through Italy and then the rest of Europe. The Medici family from the city-state of Florence was well known for their art, literature, study of classics, and even in wealth and politics. The Medici family is seen as the best model for Renaissance humanism. The rise of the Medici family is partly explained by their involvement in civic affairs, partly in the highly influential Merchant Guild. The fame of prominence enjoyed by the Medici family was largely the result of ambitious industrial predecessors, and the entire Medici lineage was a great patron of arts. Lorenzo de Medici died when a new historical era was beginning. 6 months later, Christopher Columbus would reach the New World, and 2 years later, the foolish Italian expedition of the French King Charles VIII would have the peninsula spreading half-century of warfare and strife.